Amen. I had a lot of these every time I taught church history. I didn't order them, any of them ahead of time. These books are about like $15 or $18 a piece. If you really want to study a history that is solid and sound, that you don't have to worry about whether he's fudging on what he's quoting and everything else, this is one. John T. Christian, History of the Baptists. There are 2 volumes. This is the first volume, and I chased every reference that he made in here to make sure it was true. I did in all the history books I have. And I have a history library that's 7 foot tall and 4 feet wide. You've seen it. And Mike's seen it. And it's quite a history. And I had a lot more than that at one time. A lot of them are gone now. But I've read every one of those books, and I've traced all of the quotes he makes in here, and this man is sound. And he goes down, starts off just like I'm going to. It's going to go through all the way through history.
Is that what you're going to teach out of?
No, I can't teach out of it because I couldn't get... I used to... When I took these 2 volumes, I took 2 years. 1 year on one and 1 year in the other one. And in 16 weeks, I can't do it. So I have to just fly through history. All right? But I'm going to give you a foundation. That's what I'm trying to do here. Where did we end up last week? We are in the Bible.
We ended up talking about Cain being the dominant one.
Oh, okay. We got to Cain. All right. So we'll go back to Cain. Got a little something I want to share with you a little bit about that. I've been chasing rabbits. Well, God has always had a plan. Okay? He's got a plan. Now, this is what you call a dispensational chart. Dispensational, if that word's not in the Bible, it's oikodome in the Bible. It means the Old English word is stewardship. There are administrations of time. Book of Ephesians, Book of Colossians, many books, actually all of them, have something to do about somebody being God's man in that time of history. Well, that's a dispensation. Some people will absolutely break things down into little tiny itsy-bitsy dispensations all along. I'm not going to do that. But in church history, a church age is a dispensation. And until you really understand that, you won't understand anything about God's churches. As simple as that. All of the things that cropped up in the meanwhile in church history, we're going to see it. We're going to study the doctrines. Ken Glenn, he took church history from me 3, 4, 5 times. I don't know how many times. Anyway, I taught it here over and over and over. And over the years, and he'd just come and take it. And then Rod, remember Pastor Rod? He took the class over and over again. One time, he was up in the Sequoia. His car broke down, and he had to call a tow truck. Had a tow truck driver come out, put his car up there, and was going down the hill. And this guy was in the leadership in a Lutheran church. Now, as he's going down there, he ends up leading this guy to the Lord. And he's in one of the leadership in the Lutheran church. Anyway, he led him to the Lord, to a saving knowledge of Christ on the way down that mountain. He said, I could have never done that. He said, I wouldn't even known those people were lost. I'd have just stepped in this part of Christendom until you showed the difference in that class. Ken Glenn said he learned more doctrine in church history than he did in any class he ever thought about. We're going to study it. If you go to the website and look at the website, it'll, and I'm going to print some of those things up to you. We're not there yet, but it'll say the essential elements of a New Testament church. We're going to look at that. You can look at that there. You can study some of the classes that I've taught in the past on church history also. All right. That'll give you a little bit of a view of where we're going. All right. Now we're in the garden, and we have Adam and Eve, and we have them sin. Now I'll tell you this, give you a little bit of Hebrew. Some of you, this is old hash to you, because you've listened to me teach before, but you're not going to hear it anyplace else what I'm going to tell you, because it comes out of Hebrew. All right? And I don't know how much I got in. I teach 3 classes a week, and I teach on the radio almost every night. And so I get mixed up sometimes. So I don't know exactly. Did I talk about Adam last week? How God created Adam? All right. God created Adam of all, and He created him not from dirt. Did I tell you that? All right. He didn't create him from dust. And I know that's what King James says, and all the translations, they went with King James. But the Bible says that He created him from the same elements as He created the dust, but to become dust. Because prophetically He knew he would sin beforehand. All right? And that his body would decay and go to the ground. All right? Jesus would have never decayed because He didn't have that sin element in Him, did He? Sin element is passed on to the human race through the man. Well, He created Adam as He created the dust of the ground. And it says He breathed into him the breathings of lives, plural. Again, it doesn't say that in the translations, but it says He breathed into him the breathings of lives. He created him in His image. He said in His shadow-casting image, and His blood-flowing likeness, and His spiritual likeness, He created them, plural. Now, when God created Adam, you were there. Okay? Your life, your being was in Him. Now, God, in eternity past, knew you. He says that He wrote your name down in the Lamb's Book of Life. Now, that's biblical fact. You have to accept it. What? Before the foundation, before He ever created anything.
Is that why the Bible says He breathed the breath of lives, plural?
That's right.
All of our lives.
The breathings of lives. Now, in Adam, which was the head and the founder of the human race, He breathed in him the breathings of lives. He breathed into him. Now, also this is something else. What do you think He breathed into him?
Spirit.
Where is the life in your body? Where is the life? What is a prohibition in the Old Testament?
Blood.
Blood. All right. Where did that blood come from? In His blood-flowing likeness. God breathed in the man blood and life and breath. Right there. Now, he wasn't created from dirt. Man is not a secondary creation. If you created man from dirt, he would be a secondary creation. All right? Brother Bill, you remember me teaching this before? Probably never hear it anyplace else. But I hear something like this coming back. They've been listening to me. I preached a sermon here a while back on hell is necessary, and I saw a guy preach and put it on that deal. He must have listened to me and preached a sermon on hell is necessary also today. But when you hear something like this coming back, if you don't study Hebrew, you won't see this at all. Because it comes from Hebrew. All right. Now, He breathed into man the breathings of lives. All right. Man became a living being. There. Now, here we have all the animals and everything else. God has created all of them. And man is having fellowship with the animals and everything. That's why He created them. He did not create them for food, but He created them for fellowship in the beginning. Not until after Noah that man even was supposed to eat animals. Now, if you read the Book of Enoch, how many of you ever read the Book of Enoch? This is extra biblical stuff. But at the Dead Sea Scrolls, you know what the most copied book that was copied at the Dead Sea? The Book of Enoch. All right. The Book of Enoch was the first, that was the most, they left out one chapter in the Book of Enoch, but they copied all the rest of it. That was the first book that was found and carried out of there originally. All right. And that was about 1000 A.D. when that happened. It was carried into Egypt, into a book market down. It was old then, 1000 A.D. Well, if you read the Book of Enoch, you'll find out a lot of things. We'll find out that what was so evil about man before the flood is that they were cannibals, and they were eating the animals also at that time. Now, I don't know how much of the Book of Enoch is inspired at all, but I believe some of it is, because it's quoted every place in the New Testament. every book.
Didn't Christ use it?
Well, yes, he quoted it. But you have to read it to find out when he quoted it, because you won't know he quoted it unless you read the book.
Was that part of the Old Testament Apocrypha?
The Old Testament, the Old Testament rabbis believed that the Book of Enoch was real and valid. All right? The Book of Enoch was lost. In the first couple of hundred years in the church age, it was quoted. We find writers quoting the Book of Enoch, and all of a sudden, zip, it's gone. Okay? I don't know what happened to the Book of Enoch. But anyway, again, about 1500 or so, here it starts showing up. And then, of course, we got many copies of the Book of Enoch from the Dead Sea. All right.
So it was not canonized in 70 A.D. when the Jewish council...
Yeah. They believed that he was part of the Old Testament revelation, because they believed that Enoch, the writer of the Book of Enoch, was really the seventh man from Adam. All right. And he prophesied. He prophesied basically the same thing Noah did, but he did it before Noah did. If you read the Book of Enoch, there's some pretty wild stuff in there, scary stuff. But read it for yourself. You can go to the website, discovertheword.com, and look there on the Book of Enoch and push on that, and you can get the whole Book of Enoch, read it, copy it, print it out, whatever you want to do. I even have some here, I think.
On your website?
Yeah, on the website, discovertheword.com. Yes, Brother David? No? All right. Now let's go on a little further. God hypnotized Adam. The word in Greek is hypnos. It said he put him into a deep sleep. And boy, the Hebrew and Greek has got a lot to shed, a lot of light to shed on things. God hypnotized him, put him to sleep, and took from his sides, plural, and he created woman. Now, the name for man in Hebrew is Ish, and the name for woman is Isha. It literally means out of man. And then he took her, and then he put them back together in marriage. That's why marriage is so sacred and such a beautiful thing today, is because God divided man and then put him back together in marriage.
But was the Greek word or Hebrew?
What?
You said
Ish. Ish is Hebrew.
Hypnos.
Oh, hypnos, that's Greek. It comes that is the Greek word, hypnos. I can't think of the Hebrew word right now, but it means to. I can't think of it right now.
Under.
What?
Under one of the things.
Yeah, well, hypnos. It means hypnos. It just means to cast a spell upon, to cause to go into a deep trance. That's what it means, hypnos. We got a word hypnotic and everything from the English language from that. They are hypnotizing people and putting them to sleep, even for surgery and stuff these days. Now, there must have been something to that a long time ago. God created Adam, and He taught Adam everything that we see today in the world. Adam knew all about science and the stars and everything else. As mankind deteriorated, they didn't increase in knowledge. They deteriorated for many years. After that, deterioration, run-down theory. Well, they had a child, Adam and Eve did. And after they had sinned, God promised in Genesis 3:15, and the Lord God in verse 14 said to the serpent, because you have done this thing, cursed you are more than all the cattle, more than all of the domestic animals, is what he literally meant. Than all the domestic animals. And what are domestic animals? Basically, all the animals in the world were domestic at that time, because every one of them communicated with mankind. All right? Now we talk about domestic animals. We're talking about sheep. We're talking about goats. We're talking about horses and cows and things like that. But back then, everything was domestic. It had all. In other words, they all communed with mankind. You could communicate back and forth. All right? Nope. Oh, okay. But in between you and your seed, and cursed you are more than all of the cattle, and more than every beast of the field, and on your bellies you shall walk, and dust you shall eat. Or in dust, literally, you shall eat all the days of your life. In other words, he couldn't raise himself up off of the ground to eat anymore. He no more had any legs. All right? Now, evolutionists say, hey, there are some snakes, the pythons and everything, that showed that there were legs there one time. Guess what? The snake, by the way, the word snake in Hebrew is nahash. All right, nahash. Nahash originally had legs, but God knocked his legs out from underneath him and he walked on the belly. But they said that they have a pelvis there and joints like they had legs at one time. Well, yes, they did have legs at one time.
I don't mean to ask too many questions, and I apologize if I am. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Satan was the one that Jesus. Okay, God was. I understand God punishing Satan for deceiving Adam and Eve, but why? I don't understand why the individual animal, the snakes, would.
I'm just about to get into that. That's where I'm going right now. All right. What? Now, he's cursed above all the animals. What happened to the animals after the sun? After they got out of the ark, they started killing each other, didn't they? Before that, they all got along. But after the ark, they started killing each other. But right here, there was a change in the animal kingdom. Cursed they were. They did not have the same preeminence in man's life that they had before from this period of time on. Now, the snake, Nahash, is cursed above all the other beasts. And where do we see this especially? Look all the way through time here. All these dispensations, how God dealt with man at different times. Go all the way to the millennial reign. In the millennial reign, the snake is still crawling on its belly, and God has put the earth back like it was back in the garden. That's what the millennial reign. Everything's all back like it was in the garden in the millennial reign. Everything, diseases are all gone. Everything is back like it was back in the garden. But the snake is still crawling on its belly. Now, animals, evidently, now I'm not trying to put animals on the same level as mankind, but animals have a volition to a certain extent. We know that several places in the Bible. One of them is in the garden. Now, this snake that was there was probably, maybe he was one of the most beautiful in the animal kingdom. Maybe. We're just guessing here. But in some way, he was like the head of the animal kingdom. Okay? He was like a superstar, like the king of the beast or whatever. This was the snake. And this Nahash, he loaned his body to Satan to be used to, the woman and man were used to walk talking to the animals, but who's talking to the animal? Here. Satan is using this snake's body. Now, jump all the way over into the New Testament. I'm jumping a long way, but go over there.
He's still called the serpent.
What?
He's still called the serpent.
He's still called the serpent and everything over there, but the serpents are not poisonous in this period of time. Now, a baby can play with a snake. Snakes are pretty, aren't they? I think they give you the creepy crawlies looking at them, but they are beautiful, beautiful animals. All right? But here they're going to be used for things. They're going to, the lion's going to lay down with the lamb. We studied about the millennial reign this morning. If you into all of it, I wanted to, but anyway, the curse is still going to be on the snake because he's still going to be crawling on his belly, even during that period of time. Now, what happened when Jesus crossed the Sea of Galilee over into the Gadarene area there, and there was a Gadarene demoniac there? And how many demons did that man have in him? It said a legion. At least 2,000 demons was in him. And these demons, when they saw Jesus, they cried out and said, "Oh, don't throw us into the bottomless pit yet. Do not throw us into hell. It's not time for us." And they asked to be cast, Now, we're not talking about angels now. We're talking about demons. All right? You're getting a little pneumatology in this class also. That's study spirits. These spirits that were in this man. Now, these aren't angels in this man. These are spirits. And we talked about last week when God created angels and spirits, didn't we? Now, these spirits that were in this man, spirits desire to dwell in human or animal flesh, always. They incorporate themselves with somebody, so they dwell in human or animal flesh. Now, There were 2,000 demons especially. Now, there could have been 2 of these demoniacs, by the way. The Bible talks about them. But in one of them, there was at least 2,000 demons. And they requested Jesus to send them not away, but into something else. So where did they want to go? You remember?
Swine.
Where did they want to go? Into the swine. And what did the swine decide to do?
Run over the cliff.
The swine decided, this herd of swine decided they didn't want the demons in them. So what did they do? What did they do?
They ran into the lake and drowned.
They committed suicide. They ran out there and decided to drown themselves rather than to live with demons in them. Okay? Now, give you a little bit of a rabbinical history there. The Sea of Galilee that is there. Okay? The Sea of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee got very violent at times with storms, like it does even to this day. And they said that the door to the bottomless pit was in the bottom of the Sea of Galilee.
That was Jewish legend.
That was Jewish legend. All right, just think about that now. Now, Jesus said that He was going to send them into perdition or into hell, but He allowed them to go into the pigs, and the pigs jumped into the Sea of Galilee and drowned themselves. And there, now a Jewish legend, as they read the New Testament, just what do they think? That Jesus actually sent them into hell. Because that's where the door to the bottomless pit they thought was in the Sea of Galilee, in the bottom of it. Okay, just think about that. Well, the Bible records it. No, I don't think that's where the door to the bottomless pit is, but that's what they thought, and that's what happened right there. So they recorded it as such. Okay, I just thought I'd throw a little bit of that in. When you study language, you have to study history. You have to study words, and you have to study their origins. Okay.
Now, is that legend like in the same category as like like Adam's first wife Lilith, the old Jewish myth?
No.
Things like that's no. This is more. That's apocryphal.
No, that didn't even. That isn't from Jewish tradition.
That's not tradition. So that's like mythology or whatever.
Yeah, that's
So this is Jewish tradition then?
Yes, these are the rabbinical writings, okay?
Oh, okay.
There are historical things that people wrote. There are false letters all over there in history saying all kinds of crazy things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when the Book of Enoch surfaced finally, because of all these other false letters and everything, it was never accepted much after that. All right. Now let's go on. Now we have Adam and Eve having a kid. His name is Cain. His name means gotten. Now, they thought that the Messiah, in Genesis 3:15, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between her seed. Now, he's not talking about the seed of man, but the seed of the woman now. And her seed, and you shall bruise him on the head, or he shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him as to the heel. All right. In other words, you will he shall bruise you a death-dealing blow, but you shall inflict a crippling blow to him. Now Jesus, even after the resurrection, he had the nail scars in his hands and the spear or sword scar in his side, didn't he? All right. Now, did God taste physical death on the cross of Calvary? Absolutely. He tasted. Did he receive a bruising? If you watch the movie, I don't agree with everything in the movie, the Crucifixion, but the Passion. But I think that the beating of Jesus was very, very accurate. One of the guys that was actually playing Christ in that movie, they made a slip a couple of times and actually cut him with one of those cat of nine tails, and it lacerated. I mean, the man just winced. He didn't have to pretend. He cut him, I mean, deeply. Now, that's what happened back at that period of time. Jesus did suffer for us, but he didn't stand the ground because he's God. Okay? Now, when Adam, look at verse 17. Then to Adam he said, because you have listened to your wife, and you have eaten from the tree about which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat from it, cursed is the ground because of you. This is when we have thorns and thistles. When you step on a sticker, when you get next time you get a foxtail in your sock, thank Adam. All right, because that's where they came from. The ground is cursed. And in toil you shall eat of it, and all the days of your life, both thorns and thistles that shall grow because of you. All right, here's we have this little word. It's a lot like ace in Greek, by the way. Because of you. All right, for you, because of you. All right, and you shall eat the plants of the field, and by the sweat of your nostrils, literally, by the sweat of your nostrils. All right, when you're bending over, sweating where the sweat run, right off the end of your nose. That's what it's talking about. By the sweat of your nostrils you shall eat bread till you go to the ground, till you turn to the ground, is what it literally says. Because as from it you were taken, and for your as dust are related to dust, and you shall go to dust. Now those are real hard things to translate in Hebrew. Now the man called his wife Eve, because she was the mother of all the living. Now, just think about it for a while. God had just said that they were going to die. Eve was the mother of all living, all right, but she was the mother of all dying also, wasn't she? But he didn't say the mother of all dying, did he? The mother of all living. Why? Because they believed that the promised Messiah would come. They didn't know how far ahead it would be or anything. So the first child that they have, and 4 in verse 1, now the woman had sexual relations with his wife, Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain. Cain means gotten. And she said, I have gotten a man-child, even the Lord. That's what she said. We have got the Messiah. Here he is. All right. Now, let's go on down and look a little bit more in the course of time. Cain brought an offering to the Lord of the fruit of the ground, and Abel, on his part, also brought of the firstlings of his flock, and then her fat portions thereof, and the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. All right. Now we have two people bringing two different offerings. Cain's offering was from the ground because he was a tiller of the field, wasn't he? Brother Mike.
Cain's, I mentioned this morning, tried to somehow, but I always assumed that Abel's offering was more like a sacrifice meant to be.
It was a sacrifice. Yeah. Okay. He brought the wrong offering to the. Cain brought the wrong offering to the altar. But that wasn't all.
This morning you mentioned also that it was like the portion was wrong.
The portion was wrong.
I was thinking the reason it was wrong was because it was vegetables instead of a living,
Well, the first thing, we go to the land of Israel, back over here. We go into the law age, and God, now a lot of the things that God gave here were already in place here. Okay? The prohibitions, and you do this and you do that. We have it written down here. Right here, it's passed down. We have the fusion of languages. We have people's... the whole earth is divided. See, I'm getting ahead of myself over here. And every man on the face of the earth is scattered. The languages are confused, and God divides the covenants. In the days of Peleg, God divided the continents. The earth came apart. Every man, everywhere in the world, knows about God. Romans 1st chapter tells you that as plain as day. All mankind know that wrong is wrong and right is right. It had been infused to them all the way back here. It didn't have it was written down here in the law and in stone. That's what you call carved in stone, something solid. It was there. Here it was passed down as word of mouth, what we call oral law, or simply what were they supposed to do here in this period of time, in the age of conscience? Responsibility, do good and offer blood sacrifices. Blood sacrifice was there. It didn't happen, did it? They didn't do that. Cain didn't do that.
Was the reason that Cain's offering was wrong because it was of his works?
It was of his works, but it was of the wrong portion. The man not only now, let me get there. All right. He not only brought the wrong offering. Now he could have traded and got a right offering. Okay. Now in the Old Testament there is offerings in here under the law where you can bring fruits. You're supposed to bring all first fruits to the Lord, aren't they? They're supposed to bring it. They got the Eve offerings and all this kind of stuff, wave offerings. They bring it before the Lord, the first fruits of all their crops and land and everything else, because God demanded them to bring the first fruits. Now God, back there, they irrigated very little. God brought the rain and He brought the crops, and He also controlled the weather and so on and so forth. They knew that. And they prayed to God, and when they brought the first fruits, first of all, they didn't even plant their land, did they? Cain's descendants had planted the land. The farms had already been built. They went in there, and here all of it's built for them. Okay? And all they do is have to reap the crop. Okay? Because it's all done. And all the grapes and everything were already there, the grapevines. So they get these. Well, the first fruits they bring in and they give it to God. They don't keep it. They give it to God. Because it's God's, because God is the one who gave them the land, isn't He? All right? But now if you have the first fruits, but what can happen between the first fruits and the rest of the crop getting ripe? Terrible weather, storms. So to bring the first fruits in and give it to the Lord, there has to be a trust there that God will provide and protect them in the meanwhile. Because they could bring the first fruits in and the rest of the crop be killed by hail, rain, locusts or something, and they have nothing left and they get to starve. So there is this element of trust there, isn't there? Okay? So, Cain was a works for salvation man. He was an Armenian.
Calvinist.
No. He was Armenian. Now, in history, history groups all religious circles in two groups, Calvinist and Armenian. Calvinists believe, and I mean Baptists were before Calvin ever began, and they were preaching the same thing Calvin was preaching, except without any error in it, for thousands, hundreds of years before he came along. But they group us as Calvinists and Armenians. Calvinists believe that salvation is by grace and grace only. Armenians believe that you work for salvation. Well, here we are. We have the same idea in the Garden of Eden before Calvin and Luther and Arminius ever were born. All right? Back here. So we have Cain working for his salvation. But he's not only working for his salvation, but he's bringing the wrong portion. Now, as far as we can tell, all the way back, God always demanded that His people give a tithe of what they have. A tenth. A tenth of what they receive. They tithe. Now, evidently, let's look at see what it says. I'm going to bring it a little to you out of the Hebrew here, okay? The Lord did not, in verse number 4, and the Lord had no regard for Abel, or had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain, and for his offering he had no regard. So Cain became very angry, and his faces fell, is what it says. Literally in Hebrew, his faces fell. He didn't ever smile. Every face that you looked upon him. Hebrew is a beautiful, picturesque language, and action language. His face was always like this. He had no other faces but this. None of these. It says his faces fell. His expressions fell. He was mad. Sometimes people want to just give God what they want to give God, don't they? Go to church and give Him 10 cents or a quarter maybe, and expect that God's going to be happy with that. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry?" God's talking to Cain. All right, Jehovah, He's talking to Cain. And says, "Why have your faces fallen? If you do the right division," that's what it says. It is. It comes from the word tov, and in the translation from the Hebrew to the Greek, the word is orthos. Orthos is adverbial. Okay, orthos. the Greek word. We're more familiar with that. Orthos. Okay? That's a little word right there. Now, do you think that in the English language, can you think of a word that comes from this orthos? Orthodontist. What does an orthodontist do? What do they do to your teeth? They straighten your teeth and make them set straight and make them right, don't they? All right? So orthodontist, they make your teeth straight. How about a bone guy? Orthopedic. Straighten out your bones, all right. All of these straighten out, and they divide and make them in perfect form and in place, don't they? They straighten them out, and it means to divide straightly. That's what the word means, to divide straightly. So what God is saying here to Cain, why don't you give me the right portion and the right offering? He says it to him twice. All right, 2 times he tells him. If you cut things straight, will not your faces be lifted up? And if you cut things straight, sin won't get you. If you make the right division in your life, sin won't get you. Because it says sin is crouching at the door. It's literally what it says. Sin is sneaking and waiting and crouching at the door like a lion to devour you.
Which verse is that? Sorry.
Right in verse 7. And its desire is for you, but you can overcome it. How can he overcome it? By bringing the right offering and the right portion. As simple as that. Cain was not ready to bring the right portion or the right offering. He wanted to do his things his way.
Obedience.
Obedience.
By man's volition.
Yeah. Obedience. Now, he gave him a choice, didn't he? He gave him a choice to either do it or not. Well, what did he do? Here we have the first religious persecution in the Bible. Here's where it begins, right here. This is where... Now, who was the spiritual leader under Adam? Who was the spiritual leader on this earth?
Under Adam, Cain.
Cain was. Was Abel ever supposed to be the spiritual leader? No, never was. He was the... Cain was the heir of everything. He was going to be the priest after his father died. And his father's going to die for a long time. But he was the heir. Abel was never a threat to Cain at all. Period. Never was. The only way he became a threat to Cain is when Cain allowed him to become a threat to him. Now what did he do?
Killed him.
He killed him.
I see where you're going.
Now, was Abel a type of Christ? Was he what you call a typos or type of Christ? Because he was slain.
He was slain, yes.
Like a martyr?
Like Christ.
He was slain like Christ was. Abel was.
So that's the correlation between Adam and his descendants and the church age.
Yes. Just look at it.
Yeah.
You're going to see this so plain.
Yeah.
And it's going to be plain all the way through the Bible.
That never has.
It has never.
Before.
Man's way is not God's way. God has a way. He has a set pattern. Now you can either go that way or not. But if you're going to be doing things God's way, you're going to do it the right way. We're going to see that all the way down through the church age when we get there. And Cain told Abel his brother, or Cain told Abel his brother, he said, and it came about that when they were, it actually wasn't in the field. In the Hebrew it says out in the plain, out away from everybody. Evidently he called him out and said, come on out here, Abel. I want to show you something. Yeah. And Cain rose up against Abel his brother and kept on killing him. He kept on slaying him. In Hebrew it's in the PL stem. He kept on slaying him. He slashed and he slashed and he slashed and he cut and he just cut him up in pieces. This is what we call an overkill. This is what we call when somebody is stabbed. You know, 1 or 2 stab wounds will most of the time kill somebody. But when you stab them 50 times or 100 times, there's a lot of anger there, isn't there? And that's exactly what this is in the PL stem. He kept on slaying him. Then in verse 9 it says, then the Lord said to Cain, where is Abel your brother? And he lied. Now he lies. First of all, this is the religious leader to be in the world. Cain is. And he has not chosen to do go God's way. I believe that God had already built an altar there, and He showed him what the sacrifice was going to be and what it should be and how to do it. Abel and Cain both knew. Cain knew most of all. Who do you think's right there by his daddy? Cain is. Do you think? And then as they live and they go, who do you think is showing him how to do it? Adam is showing Cain. And here God is there to receive the offering every time. Here we have God. Who's talking to Cain here?
God.
God. Is God still talking to man?
Yes.
Sure He is. He's talking to man. He's addressing him. You see now where we're going. Where is Abel your brother? I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? Boy, that's a well-quoted verse now, isn't it? Are we our brother's keeper? Absolutely. That's what Brother Roger brought out today. And he said, what have you done? The voice of the bloods is crying unto me. The voice of the bloods. The voice of the bloods is, and the lives is crying to me.
This is the
in Abel there were descendants.
This is the same blood,
Mm-hmm.
the plural blood that...
The bloods, plural. It's bloods now. It's actually his lives. His life's
the same
bloods.
words that God breathed into Adam.
Mm-hmm. Now his bloods is crying from the ground. Where does the blood in the human race come from?
Father.
Comes from the father. It does not come from the mother. The blood does not come from the mother. The blood in every child does not come from the mother. It comes from the father. In a chicken, egg, after a few days incubation, there will be blood spot in that egg. That blood is not from the hen. It is from the rooster. Every bit. Now Cain's blood and his descendants were crying to God. The lives that were in him were crying to God. That's what was condemning now. Now Cain is condemned. Let's look at it just a little bit. Now you are cursed from the ground. What was Cain's pride? It was his garden and his farm. But now the ground is going to be cursed because of him. Now Adam, the ground was cursed because of Adam, wasn't it? Now it's going to be double cursed. Wherever Cain would go, the ground would put out twice as much thistles and thorns as it would any other time. It says, the ground is cursed because of you, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's bloods from your hand. And when you cultivate the ground, it shall no longer yield its strength to you. You shall be a vagrant. You shall be a...
This one has fugitive.
Yeah.
Vagabond.
But what? A vagabond. You shall be nomadic and a wanderer on the earth. Now we find that Cain's descendants are also the ones that began the act of slavery.
Nimrod was the mighty hunter.
Here we have the origin of all slavery because of this. So he's still going to overcome the curse, isn't he? He's going to overcome the curse now because he's going to instill slavery. And Cain said, my punishment is too great to bear, because you've driven me this day from the face of the ground. Look at that. And from thy face I shall be hidden, and I shall be a vagrant and a wanderer on earth. And it came about that whoever finds me will kill me. And then the Lord said to him, therefore whoever kills Cain, vengeance will be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord appointed a sign for Cain, lest anyone find him should slay him. What in the world is that? Sign for him. Now we have the people in the South that say, well, God made all the black people black. That's where they came from, was right here. This didn't have anything to do with it at all. He didn't make him black. I mean, he could have. But this isn't the cursed.
This is like Pharaoh, where he was turned over to Satan.
Yeah.
he made that decision at this point. He still could have gone back to God and repented, but he made this decision to actively rebel.
Yeah, and he actively rebelled. And then Cain went out from the presence of the Lord. Now he goes out of the presence of the Lord. He goes out of the garden, and he settled. He wandered around in the land of Nod, is east of Eden. Okay, Nod, and Nod literally means the land of wandering.
What?
Nod means the land of wandering. Okay. Now, are you learning a little Hebrew as we're going here? I hope so. Then it says Cain had relations with his wife, or in other words, he had sexual relations with her, and she conceived and gave birth to Enoch. Now, just look and see. Now, if you look over here and you see the name of Cain's descendants, they're very similar to the names of Seth's descendants. He's naming them like that. False religion always copies the truth.
Did you already talk about where all the other women came from? Did you understand in the previous class?
No.
Okay.
We're getting to that right now. All right. Where did all of these women come from?
Would they be Adam and Eve's?
They were all Adam and Eve's children. Eve probably had 1,000 children.
Well, they lived a long
Really?
time.
She lived a long time, and she had multiple births. From Hebrew, we have multiple births.
Like
She had 3 and 4 children at a time. Okay, at least twins probably, and she had more and more. In a woman's ovaries, a woman is capable of having 1,000 children. She's capable of having children for 1,000 years. In the 1,000-year reign of Christ, we have people living and bearing and raising children over here for 1,000 years. All right? Now, she could have had 1,000 children. All right? Or maybe even more. I don't know. But a woman is biologically capable of giving birth to 1,000 children. That's possible with the eggs that she has in her ovaries. All right? 1,000 children.
And that's not including any, provision from God that He could have increased that.
Yeah. Well, now all the time she was having children, then she had children. Now, who was Abraham's wife? His half-sister. Now, I am sure that Cain's wife was his sister. I'm pretty sure of that. All right? Cain's wife was probably his sister. He probably got one of his sisters to go with him, or it could have been his cousin because they were children. There were other children at that time. This guy's already grown. He's already has a farm. The other one has raised children. They've evidently been doing this over and over again. All of a sudden, Cain becomes a tightwad and he becomes rebellious, and he's not going to do what God tells him to do. And it was in this one specific period of time. I don't think Cain ever did it before. Before he had made the right offerings. But all of a sudden, in his life, he decides, I'm going to do it my way and forget you. And what happened? Here we have the origin of false religion. All right? And we have the origin of persecution, religious persecution right here. All right. Now, you go on and there's a lot more stuff there. Okay? And names all of them. And then we have Seth. By the way, we have Adam. And then we have Cain and we have Abel. And Cain and Abel are just basically thrown out of the line. So we have Adam if you go to the genealogy of Christ, you'll find Adam and Seth there. Seth, what does Seth mean? In Hebrew, what does Seth mean? It means substitute. All right. When did Cain get substituted? After he had killed his brother. He was the absolute heir until he killed his brother. And when he killed his brother, he ceased being the heir. All right? And then the substitute was born. Seth, the substitute. And so he became the spiritual head of the family. And evidently Seth brought the right offerings. All right? The right offerings. Now let's go on in history a little bit more. I'm only going to keep you just a few more minutes. Then I'm going to turn you loose. We have the age of conscience, and they were supposed to what? Do good and offer blood sacrifice. Genesis 3, 5, 7, 22, and 4 and verse 4. All right? What was their failure? Wickedness. What happened to this mankind, this group of mankind? There was slavery out here. We have rebellion. If you read the Book of Enoch now, this is very important in this period of time, you'll find out that mankind they were wicked. 6, 5, and 6. Let's go to Genesis 6, the 6th chapter, verses 5 and 6. Go all the way from the first verse. I'll throw you a few things in here that you can think about for the next 50 years, okay? Now it came about when man began to multiply on the faces of the land. By the way, it's always faces of the land. And the daughters were born to them. Then the sons of God, B'nai Elohim, is what it says, saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves whomever they chose. They were going to do things God's way, weren't they? Now, there are two views of this. One, that these B'nai Elohim are the sons of God, which are the faith line. And then the other idea is, of which the Book of Enoch talks about, is that these were angels. Angels. Now, angels are different than spirits. Okay? What do angels look like? Human. All right? They look like humans. When the angels went into the Sodom and Gomorrah, what did these Sodomites want to do to them? They wanted to have sex with them. All right? So they look like men. And evidently, maybe. Okay? This is another thing you can think about, okay? Of all the things. Maybe these angels did really cohabit with women, and it's going to tell you, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man forever, but because he is also flesh, nevertheless his days shall be 120 years. By the way, it took 120 years to build the ark. I've heard people say, well, see there, we can live 120 years. It's not what's talking about here. How long did it take Noah to build the ark? 120 years. I'm going to leave man on this earth for 120 more years. And if they repent, they get to live. If they don't, they won't. All right? So that's not a lifespan of people at this time. Okay? Now, some of them lived more than 120 years at that time. But really, at this period of time, Noah and his Ham, Shem, and Japheth made it through the flood, didn't they? The rest of them all died. So they all lived to be pretty old. Still. They lived over 120 years, didn't they? But how long did God give them? 120 years. Now, let's go back. If you believe the Book of Enoch, how long did Enoch walk on the earth with God? 300 years, and God took him. Enoch preached for 300 years. You can hear what he preached in the Book of Enoch. Okay? He said there was a great universal flood coming, that God was going to destroy man because of their evilness, and he literally specified what those evil things were. Literally. If that is inspired. Okay? He specified what the evil was. The Lord saw the wickedness. And it says, and the Nephilim are kept on being the earth in those days also, and afterwards, when the sons of God came unto the daughters of men, and they bore children to them, and they were mighty men of old, and men of renown.
Those were the Nephilim.
Yeah, those were the Nephilim. Nephilim means fallen ones. That's what it means, fallen ones. Nephilim means fallen ones. Okay? And so, yes.
At the beginning of verse 2, and the sons of God, you said what?
The sons of God, B'nai Elohim.
Okay.
Sons of God. Sons of God. Now, the Bible talks about sons of God. They actually are, most of the time, it's talking about angels. Every places in the Bible is talking about, they are actually angels. And I've got a tape that I can show you about this. If you want to see it, we can see that tape, and it'll tell you a little bit about it. And the guy really, he goes into great detail about it. And the rabbis talked about this. The rabbis all believed this. Okay, they believed that this actually happened like Enoch, the Book of Enoch said. Okay, that's what they believed. All right. Like I said many times in the past, I wish that the Book of Enoch was taken apart and just intensely scrutinized like the Bible has. So, like the text of the Bible has, but it never has.
The sons of God means fallen angels.
It could mean fallen angels, yes.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. It could be actually fallen.
And their descendants would be fallen ones, if that's true. Okay?
As opposed to, like, obviously, it wouldn't have been just angels. That This would have been after the fall of...
That's the fall. All right? This is the fall.
Okay.
All right? Their responsibility.
Basically demons, then?
No. These are not demons. Demons are spirits.
Oh.
All right? These are angels. All right? These sons of God are angels. If that's true. Now, let me tell you the other side of the coin, okay, also. Now, some people say, well, here we have the sons of God. These are the line of God. And they started marrying into the other bunch, the Cainites. All right? And they had terrible guys. Well, whichever it was, there was a wicked race of people on the earth. All right? Wicked race of people, yes.
I was told this could be, I've read a few books on, that these could be the creation of spirits or something that afflicted us all, that still afflict us in terms of like the occult and all that. And
well,
these are the people who would be thrown in the lake of fire, these angels here, when they refer back to it from Revelation.
I heard some people do that. Now, what... there's a guy, Chuck Messler, and he has this video of this. I may show you this video. It's really interesting. Now, if 1/3 of the angels and spirits fell, how is the only way that Satan would increase his numbers? He has to multiply. And how do they multiply? Well, if the angels could cohabit with women, then they could have these babies, which would be spiritual entities from this. Now, angels were never supposed to marry, but these did. Of course, they were rebellious, or they were fallen. All right?
So that would fall in line with...
That fall in line. All of it means the fallen ones, okay? Regardless, it means the fallen ones.
That would go along with Satan trying to thwart God's plan.
Yeah. Here we have...
Trying to outbreed.
Yeah. Trying to outdo God.
Yeah.
All right? Here we have failure. Now, the Book of Enoch said that these beings that were the product of angels and women, that they became man killers and man hunters. And they not only they started hunting animals and killing the animals. God did not give animal flesh for man to eat at this time, but they, according to the Book of Enoch, they were killing these animals and eating them, and they had such a voracious appetite that they started actually cannibalism, and that's when cannibalism started. That's as far as I'm going to get tonight. I'm going to turn you loose. Previews of coming attractions. But we're studying about the struggle, the ecclesiastical controversy, all down through history. The conflict of the ages between man and religion. God has a way for us to go, and man has always had his plan to go a different way. He wants to do things his way. I can assure you of one thing. If the Bible says to do this, that is right, and if you want to go the wrong way, you're doing nothing but heaping trouble on your own head. It's simple as that. That's just the way it is. Well, thank you for your attention tonight and bearing with us. Brother David, would you dismiss us in prayer, please, brother?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the time that we have to come and study your word and to learn more about you, Lord, to know who you are. Lord, we just thank you for your salvation and your death on the cross. Lord, it's such an awesome thing that you did for us, to die for us, that we could spend eternity with you. Help us to go out and to witness to others who are lost so that they can understand and have a knowledge of you, Lord. We just ask your blessings upon everybody in this room as they go their separate ways. In your precious name. Amen.
Amen.